अजं निर्विकल्पं निराकारमेकं निरानन्दमानन्दं वेदं परं निर्गुणं निर्विशेषं निरेकं गणेशं भजे परब्रह्मरूपं गणेशं भजे सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि भवतु मे सदा या श्रद्धा धारणा मेधा वाग्देवी विधिवल्लभा भक्तजिह्वाग्रसदा क्षमा व्याख्या प्रकटितपरब्रह्मतत्त्वं युवाशिष्टान्ते वसत्कणैराते आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितमानन्दम् आत्मा रामं मुनिपदम् व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वसिष्ठाय नमो नमः यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातराजुहाव क्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं व्याप्तं जगत्येन चिदात्मभावात् रज्ज्वा हिर्विचराचरं यत् तन्यस्य सर्वं च सदात्मभावे स्वयं समस्तं च बभूवयस्तु निस्सङ्गनिर्मुक्तिपदं प्रपद्य ब्रह्मात्मभावेन विराजितो यः श्रीसौम्यकाशीशमहेश्वराय तस्मै नमः स्वामितपूतनाय समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सत्ब्रह्म वन्दे तेजोमयं नित्यं गुरुं ज्ञानप्रभाकरं यस्यैककिरणादेव नष्टा विद्यातमः सदा जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदायादिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मप्रोज्झितकैटवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनम् श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतम् पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहं रसिकाः विभावुकाः वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीतदाभात् पीताम्बरादरुणबिम्बफलाधगोष्ठात् नेन्दुसुन्दरं भादरं इन्दनेत्रात् नात्परं किमपि तत् जाने परमहंसा स्वादितचरणकमलचन्दाय जनमानसनिवासाय इतिहासपुराणाभ्यां Vedartham Upabrahmayet. This is a very important principle that lays down the purpose of our Puranas, Itihasas, and how we should approach our study of them. They are to be used as a means to understand that truth which is expressed most directly in the Vedas, in the Upanishads. And it is to bring that truth home that all these stories are given to us. So it's important that we don't read our Puranas merely as histories or as treatises that talk about science, that talk about society as it was at a particular period, but that we use those stories as a means to reach that goal which the Vedas envision for us. Which is to look within to discover the divinity within us. So we have to use these Puranas as a mirror to examine ourselves. Which means, no matter how beautifully we may sing the Prahlada Stuti, we may sing stories of Krishna, of Rama, all very nice. But until we use those stories as a means to understand ourselves, those stories are not fulfilled. Their purpose is not complete. And so, in this session, I thought we should delve into the symbolism of this Prahlada story, because it's something that is very often overlooked in the telling of the story itself, which is so powerful, so beautiful. And that story itself has so many elements to help us develop bhakti, to develop shraddha, etc. But there is another layer of it, a depth to it, that if we understand, can have great spiritual benefit. So we have to see the Prahlada within ourselves. We have to see the Narasimha Bhagavan within ourselves. See that, we also have to see the Hiranyakashipu within, which is easier for us actually. Because Hiranyakashipu is much more manifest in us than Prahlada or Narasimha. What is this Hiranyakashipu? Hiranyakashipu is nothing but the ego self. The idea of I that is limited to just this one body, mind, intellect, and then the relationships, the possessions that surround it, then that ego is Hiranyakashipu. It's very important to remember, but keep in mind that It's very important to keep in mind that we must not think of the ego by itself as something bad. It is only that ego which uh, gets caught up in this limited identification with the BMI that is a problem. Otherwise, ego by itself is a creation of Bhagavan, and it is essential for the working of this world. So the origin, so we have to look at Hiranyakashipu's origin story. Hiranyakashipu was the Dwarapala of Vaikuntha. So that ego, which is identified with Bhagavan, which is identified with the higher cause, which is identified with serving society, and that ego is very healthy. And there's nothing wrong with it. Like we see so many in our country's history, so many great freedom fighters who forgot all their own personal needs, their own family lives, everything, and sacrificed it all for the purpose of the freedom of the nation, for our community, for our land. So for a higher cause, that entire ego was identified with that cause, then it blessed also. Right? So then it is Vijaya, it is victory, it is glory. But the moment that identification narrows down to this BMI and its immediate, then it becomes evil, it becomes dangerous, it becomes poisonous, it becomes Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu, the name itself is very telling because it captures the entire activity of this little ego. Hiranya means gold, it stands for all wealth. Wealth in terms of money, wealth in terms of influence, wealth in terms of relationships, wealth in terms of fame, wealth in terms of beauty, wealth in terms of talent, all kinds of wealth that we see is Hiranya. And Kashipu means a mattress. So it stands for comfort, stands for pleasure. And one thing that our egocentric activities are to gather wealth and then to use that wealth for greater and greater pleasure for ourselves. And if we see almost 99.9% of our activities will fall into one of these two categories, isn't it? Maybe 100. So that is Hiranyakashipu. Now this Hiranyakashipu is married. His wife, her name is Kayathu. Kaya means everybody. Kaya adhunoti iti Kayathu. The one that purifies everybody is Kayathu. So this Kayadhu is the conscience. That which keeps pulling us back towards dharma, pulling us back towards what is good for us and for others around us, pulling us back towards the path of the right is Kayadhu. And it's beautiful in that name, talks about purifying everybody, not just ourselves. So if one person lives honestly according to their conscience, then it is not only that person who is purified, but everybody around them, they are also elevated. And one of the best examples I can think of for that is the person in whose memory I'm doing this Bhagavatam, my late father-in-law, who lived by principle. He was very firm in what he would follow in his principles, never deviated from that. Very honest, very conscientious, very very gentle. He never spoke ill of people. Lived his whole life in Goa, never touched a drop of alcohol. never smoked. So those who did all those things also, when they came to him, they would never indulge in all this, at least not in his presence, at least not before meeting him, at least not when he was involved in some way. So to that extent, those people are also purified and lifted up. So one person living honestly their dharma lifts up one whole community. Imagine if more and more people did that, the whole nation is lifted up. And if whole nations do that, the entire world will be healed of its problem. So the greatest thing we can all do is listen to that inner kayathu, listen to our conscience and live according to it. And that is one of the greatest acts of seva. But this conscience by itself still is only is only at the surface level of vyavahara. It is at the level of interacting with others, with the world. What fuels it? What is deeper inside? Kayadhu is pregnant with Prahlada. Prahlada stands for total faith. Our conscience, whether we know it or not, is filled with, is permeated by this faith. Faith has to be the basis for conscience. Because if we don't believe that there is something divine, something good in others, we will not respect them. And if we don't respect them, how are we going to treat them ethically, honestly, well? If we look down in contempt at others, then there is every reason to start exploiting them. So this faith is the root of conscience, and its manifestation is joy. Those who live in that faith, those who live in that consciously in that awareness that I don't have to worry about anything. Bhagavan will take care of me. Those who live with that freedom, there is a special beauty about them. There's a special joy about them. We all recognize it. We recognize it in ourselves when we have those few moments of trust, when we are able to let go and rise out of ourselves and live. That is Prahlad. Now see, this Hiranyakashipu went off for tapas. He left Kayadhu and went for tapas. This is very important. We take up anything. Tapas does not mean only spiritual practice, but any endeavor that we take up. But we leave our conscience at home and then start, it is going to be a disaster. Whether it is in business, politics, spirituality, whatever it may be. Our selfishness, our ugly desires will end up poisoning it all. How many people have become hugely successful in business, but their business is polluting the earth, polluting our air, polluting our waters. Their business is selling harmful products that poison people's bodies. How many people have become multi-billionaires selling cigarettes, selling alcohol, or selling coal and petrol? And they put all their money into suppressing other healthier alternatives, into forcing governments to allow them to continue, to allow them to advertise, etc. So all the adharmic things happen, right? Because of the greed of those people. Because whatever they're doing for Hiranyakashipu. Kayadhu has been left at home. We see it in spirituality, no? How many fake babas, how many pastors who come and look at a poor Hindu and say, our church will feed you, our church will give you money, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, you convert. So that person's numbers grow. They are defining their success in spirituality by numbers, not by how much faith they have, not by how much love they spread in the world. And they're exploiting the hunger, the poverty of somebody to steal that one last thing that was sustaining their faith. Also, they have stolen away. What could be more adharma? If somebody converts out of conviction, if they find a path towards the higher in Christianity and then convert, wonderful, I'm all for it. If everybody should find their own way. But this is not that. If you're exploiting somebody's weaknesses in order to pull them away from their paths, isn't it a spiritual disaster? And then all these fake babas and pastors and all, not only are they, first of all, they themselves don't gain any benefit from whatever they're doing spiritually. They are destroying the faith of so many people. And then outside, others who see them lose faith. Those who might have come to spirituality, but say, it's all bluff. These are all people just exploiting. Right? They are all fake. And so many people who could have come to spirituality, who could have uplifted themselves, are denied the opportunity because of what could be more harmful. So this Hiranyakashipu doing tapas is like that. And through that tapas, through that effort, the ego gains great power. Power over the total power over our body, over our mind, over our intellect. Everything that we do is ruled by our ego. So all the devatas that Hiranyakashipu gained power over, these are all elements within us. Our mind, our emotions, our hands, our eyes, our tongue. All our indriyas are completely in the service of Hiranyakashipu. Now, having gained that power, Hiranyakashipu has to reunite with Kayato. His wife has come back from his tapas. He cannot escape that conscience. Somewhere or other will keep pricking at us. At least when we go to sleep at night and we are struggling to fall asleep, that voice within us, I'm doing the right thing. Isn't it wrong? Paths that are wrong. These questions come, they haunt us. And at the right time, Kayatu gives birth to Prahlada. That voice of Shraddha keeps saying, no, stop all this. Come towards Dharma, come towards the path of love. You don't need all this wealth. Like Prahlada tells Hiranyakashipu that Sadhumani, what I think is best is drop everything. Manam gatoyat harimashrayeta. And just take a refuge in Bhagavan. You don't need to gather all this wealth and power and luxury. That is not going to stay. That voice will always be there. See, a person may follow spirituality also just to fatten their ego. But still they are following. Even if it is to cheat others, but even they have to know a little bit about our Shastra, a little bit about our teaching. Only then they are able to successfully cheat. At least for that purpose, they have to study it. So that cheating may be a great papa, but then that little bit they have studied is a punya. And just as that papa will not go unpunished, that punya also will not go unblessed. So somewhere that Narada is there, that Guru Tattva is there, that fills up Prahlada with this knowledge. And at the right time, that voice starts to. Now the ego will not want to listen to that voice. The ego will send Prahlada to Shandamaraka. Shanda and Amaraka are a wonderful educational system. Shanda means dahi. But Chanda stands for actually, is Kutarka. All our twisted logic, all the so-called practical advice that people give you on how to live in this world is actually advice for going deeper and deeper into egocentric activities. How to prosper at gathering Hiranya, at gathering Kashyapa. Wealth and pleasure. That's what they taught Prahlada also. No? But why dahi? Because dimag ka dahi ban jata hai. I have to find something. No? There's not always a meaning in the name. But dahi banna meaning that which was milk, that which was pure and sattvic, right? Transformed into there's a sourness. There's never without its name. Amaraka. Amaraka means violence, destruction. Because if you don't listen to that Kutarka, there will be people try violent ways when their conscience is troubling them and they are not able to change their path and correct themselves. At the same time, they are not able to live with that guilt. They turn to all sorts of violent means of silencing that prahlada with drugs, alcohol, all sorts of other extremely unhealthy, destructive practices, all the way to suicide. Hiranyakashipu does everything possible to torture and destroy that prahlada. But that prahlada remains strong in faith. Faith cannot be destroyed. You know, the reason Hiranyakashipu cannot destroy Prahlada is that manifestation of our truest, which we cannot destroy. Shankaracharya says even Ishvara cannot destroy this. So this conflict is going to Hiranyakashipu, Prahlada is not trying to change Hiranyakashipu particularly, but Prahlada is constantly that voice of love. Hiranyakashipu hates Prahlada, wants to destroy. At some point, that ego has to say, okay, show me. You talk so much about this Bhagavan, this Atma, show me where it is. Let me see. Because what I see is only Stamba. I only see this pillar. I only see the gross world. You claim that there is some God inside it. Where is it? At least in that attitude, the question is asked. See, our Gurudev also went to Swami Shivananda. He went to do an expose to show how these Babas are fooling the society. But whatever his motive, took him to the next level. Right? So there, Prahlada won. Hiranyakashipu was different. So when Hiranyakashipu opens the door like that to experience and says, let me try this and see, if only to prove it wrong. At that moment, that world is shattered, the pillar is shattered, and what comes out is Narasimha. The world, as we see it, as a gross, ugly place full of desires, full of violence, full of hatred, that world is split open and we see at the heart of it that Narasimha experience. Na mrigam na manusham. It is neither human nor animal. It is not a creation of Brahma. So it is not a thing of this world. It is not an invention of human thought. It is something that far great pre-existed all that. And it comes neither in the day nor in the night. It is beyond time. It is in that moment of Sandhya. Sandhya means sunset, but Sandhya really is the name of Saraswati Devi, manifestation of Goddess Saraswati, at that dawning of wisdom, that dawning of Brahmvidya. Sam plus dhya. Dhya means dhyanam, samyak dhyanam, right? Meditation. That moment. So not day. That means not at the period of Jagrat. Not night, meaning not in deep sleep or dream state also. Neither waking, not dream, not deep sleep. It is the fourth state, that Turiya, that Samadhi Avastha, where this Narasimha Bhagavan. And it is not outside and it is not inside. Our idea of inside and outside is with reference to the body. But in the seat of meditation, we have rise above the body. Then we rise above these emotions. It is also not inside in the sense that you're not in samsara. But it is not outside in the sense you're not yet liberated. You're on the threshold where Hiranyakashipu has to be destroyed before you can cross. And it is not by man-made weapons, nor by any forces of nature that Hiranyakashipu is destroyed. Whatever we do, our effort can never destroy that Hiranyakashipu. Only by God's grace, by letting go. Why? As long as I am trying, what I am trying to destroy the ego, how will it work? Because that thing which is doing the destroying itself is the ego. So we have to drop that ego and surrender. That is the act of destroying the ego, actually. And it is not a weapon of nature or a force of nature. It is because we will never grow out of the ego. It is not something that, as we grow older, we'll become wiser and then naturally all these things will flow. No, it doesn't happen like that. Lifetime after lifetime, it only keeps becoming stronger. So, what is it? It is the nakha, the nails of Bhagavan. Nakha is that is that divine instrument. Let us not get into the try to get too far into the weeds here. But it is simply the force of Bhagavan's will. It is in his hand. And he tears that Hiranyakashipu. And in Hiranyakashipu's place, the place of the ego, he installs Prahlada, faith. Faith that Govinda Pariramdita. I'm always in his embrace. Whatever happens through me, to me, around me, it is all my Bhagavan taking care of me, looking after my best interests in a way that I may not know. I may not understand today. 10 years later, I realized, oh, what a great blessing that was. At that time, I thought it was a great disaster. Now I realize that that was. Please mute. So, this is the inner Prahlada Charitra. And we should all learn to recognize Hiranyakashipu, recognize Prahlada in us. At every moment that battle is happening, the two of them are arguing. Those two voices are always there. One is calling us towards accumulating wealth, towards accumulating pleasure. The other is calling us towards joy, towards peace, towards surrender, towards accepting life as it. And at every moment, we can choose follow Prahlada or Hiranyakshipu. We have to have that awareness and keep making those choices. With that, we end this 7th canto. Now, briefly, I'll just introduce the 8th canto and so that we have this. The 8th canto, the name of the canto is Manvantara. So the period of service, the term of one Manu is one Manvantara. So in each Manvantara, there will be one Indra and one or all the Devatas also, they'll be appointed. It's like one government's term, 5 years. Manu is like the Prime Minister, then Indra, the Devatas are the cabinet, they're all. Then next Manvantara, everything will be changed. Right? So in this canto, so far we have seen whatever happened under Swayambhu. Now in this canto, the stories that are told are Bhagavan's Leelas under different Manus later. Therefore, Manvantara. But the theme of it is Sadharma. Because after the Prahlada Charitram in the 7th canto, there is some discussion of the different dharmas of people. These are all the dharmas that we follow through our effort. So their basis is our willpower, our strength of character, our ability to control our. That is dharma. This is Sadharma. Sadharma, that dharma which is undertaken not based on our self-effort, but based on trust in Bhagavan. By holding on to him, by surrendering to him, that dharma which is followed is Sadharma. That is the real theme of Bhagavan. Nirmatsaranam Satam Dharma. It's the theme of Bhagavan. So, in this we see 3 main kathas, which give us different aspects of this. One is the story of Gajendra, which teaches us the path of total surrender. That is the essence actually of surrender. Second is the story of the Samudra Manthanam and Vamana Avatar, which together, in my opinion, form one. And that comes under the path of yoga. And finally, we have in one chapter, Matsyavatara is told. That is the path of surrendering to the Guru, following the Guru. How all these things are, I will explain when we come to. These are all very beautiful stories, very beautiful charitras with a lot of depth to them. I will try my best to convey whatever I can to my limited capacity. When this Prahlada Charitram, now I have tried to explain something of the symbolism, but there is much, much more to it, which each of us have to look within and contemplate and see in our hearts how these stories. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, for encouraging me, for sharing in this joyous journey through Dhamma. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Guru Namaha Harihi Om. योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरश्रद्धम् अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे। गोपिका जीवन स्मरणं गोविंदा गोविंदा। हरि ओम, thank you very much and I'll see you next